The Klausenburg Rebbe was a giant, unique in many ways. He was truly a giant that walked amongst us in Torah, in Avodah, in caring for Klal Yisrael. So I want to speak primarily about what I saw with my eyes and what I experienced. We moved to Kiryat Sanz and Netanya 3 days before my bar mitzvah. And all my Bochel Shiurim I learned by the Klausenburg Rebbe. And of the many Gedolim I came to know throughout the years. And I had a close relationship with almost all the Gedolim during my lifetime, starting with Reb Moshe and Reb Yaakov Kamenetsky. I had a especially close kesher with Reb Yaakov, but I knew Reb Moshe. And Gedolei Eretz Yisrael, Reb Shimon Zalman. I had a very close relationship with Rabbi Yatziv. Many times he turned to me and he asked me to write shuvas, and he relied on my psukim. I had a very, very close and unique relationship with Yeres Shachar, with Rabbi Lepstein, as Rabbi Gottesman knows very well. I accompanied him on some of his trips abroad, to Toronto, to Chicago, to New York, to Los Angeles. I knew most of the Gedolim during my lifetime, but my Rebbe Muvat was the Divrei Yatziv. So I want to share with you what I saw, what I experienced, but one can't tell the story of the Klausenburg Rebbe without starting in the Holocaust, because it is then and there that he rose to the heights of Malachi Eshelis. Many times I told the story my father first met the Klausenburg Rebbe. It was the second day Shavuos Tafshin Dalet 1944. My father arrived in Auschwitz the first day Shavuos, and that very same day he lost his Zayda, his Baba, his father, his mother, and 5 of his siblings, who went up in smoke in the chimneys of Auschwitz. One day later, the Klausenburg Rebbe arrived, and he lost most of his family. And my father approached the Klausenburg Rebbe, and he expressed his chus to try to become close to the Rebbe and help him out as much as he can. But those 13 or 14 months in Auschwitz, from Auschwitz to Warsaw, from Warsaw to Dachau, from Dachau to Tutsi, till the liberation. The Klausenburg Rebbe, throughout this ordeal, kept his kedusha, and he didn't eat cooked food. So all they had to eat is a piece of awful bread and some awful drink that they called coffee in the morning, and then a horrific soup with meat. When they came back from work, and that was Bosan Avelis Atzreifis. And the Klausenburg Rebbe used to swap his soup for a piece of bread or a raw piece of potato. He paskined to everyone, eat whatever you have or whatever you could eat, because it's pikuach nefesh. But for himself, he was machmir. When he worked, and he worked just like all the others, because to the Nazis, there was no difference between the greatest gadol and the simpleton. To them, we were all vermin, less than vermin. Yemach shemam v'zichro. And when the Klausenburg Rebbe used to work, avodas berach, svasoisav merach eshois, and somebody bent down and put his ear very close to the Rebbe's mouth, and he realized that he's quoting the pasuk Tachas asher lo yovadetu as Hashem elokecho b'simcha v'b'tuv leiv. And that pasuk was shogar al Shonoi all the time. Kachas asher lo yevadetu es Hashem Elokecho b'simcha v'b'tuv lev. Many years later, in a private conversation I once had with a Rebbe, he said, not for one moment was I maharer achrei midosav shel HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And when I heard those words, I shuddered. I just couldn't believe that a human being going through this Gehenna, leaving his wife, losing his wife and 11 children, his entire family, all he had, his wife and 11 children. For one moment, didn't I question HaKadosh Baruch Hu. So when the Mishnah says in Masechet Tovos Perek, Yasur Nisyonis Nisnas Avraham Avinu V'Omed B'Kulam, Rashi writes, V'lo hirher achrei midosav shel HaKadosh Baruch Hu. That's the madrega of Avraham Avinu, and that was the madrega of the Klausenburg. The moment of liberation, everybody tried to get back to life, and even many Gedolim. The initial response was just to care for themselves, try to get away, try to escape, try to run away from this nightmare. Not the Klausenburg Rebbe. From the first moment, he dedicated every fiber of his soul and being to rebuild Klal Yisrael. So the Rebbe turned to my father and he said, I want you to help me build. My father was a young boy. He was 19 at the time, and he said, I want to learn. My father was a tremendous Ilui. And my father told the Rebbe, I need to learn. I want to go back to yeshiva. I want to go back to the Gemara. And the Rebbe angrily told him, you know nothing about Mesiras Nefesh. When one deprives himself from food, from drinks, from sleep, the Rebbe said, that's Mesiras Aguf. It's not Mesiras Nefesh. Verklappen the Gemara for HaKadosh Baruch Hu, that's Mesiras Nefesh. Closing the Gemara for HaKadosh Baruch Hu, that is Mesiras Nefesh. Close the Gemara, my father did. And together with his great Rebbe, they built. In Fellenwald and Feldafing, establishing schools, chadorim, for boys, for girls, yeshivas, lekarav levi yisrael elavim shebashamayim. The Rebbe was the shadchan in Fellenwald. He was the shadchan of my father and mother, and he was their Masada Kiddushin in Fellenwald. My oldest brother was born in Germany, in Fellenwald. And the Rebbe built. To close the Gemara for HaKadosh Baruch Hu's sake, that is the greatest Mesiras Nefesh. The Klausenburg Rebbe was the greatest Ilui I knew. And my father was a tremendous Ilui. That was a time to save and to salvage and to build. Many, many years ago, I don't recall when it was, I was invited by the Aguda to a convention to speak about the Klausenburg Rebbe. Maybe it was even the first Yortzeit. It's 26 years since the Rebbe passed away, Tavshin Nun Daled. I think it was the first convention after the Rebbe passed away. And I was invited to speak Motzei Shabbos, speak about my Rebbe and to share some stories and thoughts. I told a story that happened the first Erev Yom Kippur after the liberation. So Atzadik HaKadosh is sitting in his room preparing for Yom Kippur, and there's a knock on the door. The Rebbe opens the door, and there's a young girl standing there and crying, and she says, I remember every year Erev Yom Kippur, my father used to bench me, but my father is no longer. So I came to ask the Rebbe to bench me. The Rebbe took a handkerchief, spread it on that little girl's head. put her hands on her head and benched her. She left his room with a smile on her face. A few minutes later, there's another knock on the door, and another, and another. 85 girls stood in line, and the Rebbe patiently spread that handkerchief on the head of each and every one of them and benched them like a father benches his children. I never knew a person that had 85 daughters, but Klausenburg the Rebbe had many more than 85 sons and daughters. He was the father to hundreds and to thousands that he brought tachas kanfei Ashkina with love, with compassion, with caring, and he took care of all their needs. So that's briefly the story of the Klausenburg Rebbe in the Holocaust and its aftermath. But I want to share with you about the godless of the Klausenburg Rebbe. First of all, is godless b'Torah. I don't think ever since the Divrei a Hasidic Rebbe, achieved the renown and the fame as a Gadol b'Torah like the Klausenburg Rebbe did. Many Hasidic masters were great Gedolim, starting off the Shulchan Aruch Harav, Meir Nesivim, Menoira HaTahira. Those were Gedolei Yisrael Talmidim of the great Maggid of Mezrich. The Shiurim was an unbelievable charaf and one of the greatest Gedolim of his time. The Avnei Nezer. But I don't think any Hasidic Rebbe achieved the status of a Poisek Hador like the Divrei in his day and age. The Divrei together with the Shoel Meishan and Reb Shlomo Kluger, were Poiskei Hador, and every major halachic controversy of that era find its way into the Tshuvas Divrei like the Shoel Meishan and Reb Shlomo Kluger. And his great-grandson, the Divrei Yatziv, was the same. He was known as one of the greatest Gedolei Yisrael of our time. And the crown of his Torah activities was the Shalos Tshuvas Divrei Yatziv. He was a Gevaldige Mefalbel. Never in the history of Chassidus was there a Rebbe that said a pilpul at the Tish Friday night, not even the Divrei. That is a minute unique to the Klausenburg Rebbe, and I think it's symbolic. So I remember the days going back more than 50 years. There weren't thousands of Hasidim by the Tish, not even hundreds. Sometimes there were 20 or 30 people there. That's all they were. 2 o'clock in the morning, the Rebbe says a pilpul that takes an hour. It's embarrassing to say, but almost everybody slept. My father was one of the only people that never slept. He was really into it. And the Klausenburg Rebbe insisted on saying that shtetl every Friday night. I think he wanted to convey a message that the Klausenburg Rebbe Torah, capitalist. Chassidus is Torah, Avodah is Torah, Yiras Shamayim is Torah, Avos Hashem is Torah. Torah reigns supreme. But he saw as most important the Tshuvas that he wrote, 7 volumes of Divrei Yatziv. And in his short introduction to Shalos Tshuvas Divrei Yatziv, the Rebbe tells the story when he was a young boy sitting in his father's lap. His father was the Rudnik Rav, a grandson of the Divrei. He was an awesome tzaddik. And his father told him, "You're going to be big. You're going to write a sefer. I want you to call the sefer Divrei Yatziv." Yatziv is Yekosir Yehuda ben Tzvi, the name of the great Klausenburg Rebbe and his father. And then the Rebbe says when he visited the Ostrovtzer Rebbe, he held himself a Talmud of the Ostrovtzer. The Ostrovtzer was an unbelievable Goyen, And Tzaddik, the Astar of Rebbe told him, like a prophecy, you're going to be big, you're going to write Shuvas La'alacha, B'To'eles Klal Yisrael. What is unique about the Shuvas Divrei Yatziv is every Shuvah starts with a Gemara. And that is so important, such an important lesson. Because many Meiros today start off with Sifik and Shiurim, many Shuvas start off with the Mishnah Brura. Every Shuvah in Divrei Yatziv starts with a Gemara. That's where it all comes from. That's where it all originates. Everything starts with the Gemara. That's an important lesson he tried to teach. And his Dveikis and Torah's Ahavas Torah was unbelievable. This is a story I told many times because I witnessed that story. I was there. So once a week, the Rebbe said a Shir Kloli for the entire yeshiva, but every day there was a private Shir, only to a small group of Bochaim. And for years I had the source to be one of them. And I remember once the Shir was exceptionally short. It was about 45 minutes. This year, it became obvious to everyone why the Shir was so short. We were still sitting in the Rebbe's room when a person walked in. And I knew that person very well. It was a big nugget, a big Tamchen Divrei. He was very close to the Rebbe. So as it became obvious, a few days earlier, the Klausenburg Rebbe asked him, I want you to come to see me Tuesday, 8 o'clock. I have something very important to talk to you about. And the person objected and he said, it's impossible because I need to catch a flight 12 o'clock. And by the Klausenburg Rebbe, everybody knew that 8 could be 9, it could be 9:30. Zmanim were not very consistent by the Klausenburg Rebbe. So he apologized. And the Rebbe said, no, I promise, 8 o'clock, I'll be waiting for you. Person arrives at 8 o'clock, turns to the Gabbai. I have an appointment with the Rebbe, could you let me in? And the Gabbai says, well, he's in the middle of a shir. So he asks, when did he start the shir? He says, 7:45. 7:45? How long does the shir take? He says, an hour and a half, so probably by 9:30, 9:15, I'll be finished. And the person was shocked. Did the Rebbe forget that I need to catch a flight and he promised to be waiting for me at 8 o'clock? So the shir was exceptionally short. At about 8:25, the shir was over. And the person walks in and the Rebbe apologizes and he says, I did not forget. I didn't forget. We have an appointment at 8, but this afternoon I had an awful headache. It was unbearable. I took medicine and it didn't help. Klausenburg Rebbe always expressed himself in exaggerated terms. That was his sprach. I thought I'm going to die. I had no option, no other choice but to call the Bochamin and to learn with them. And we saw that on a daily basis. When he learned Torah, he got koiches loy ma'alam hudein, koiches l'malam derech hateva. He forgot about all his pain and all his suffering. They all just evaporated. Ka'ari, his nasai, and the moment he finished the shir, he just fell apart. That was the Klausenburg Rebbe and his Dveikis and Torah, and his love of B'nai Torah. Like the Gemara says about Yechezkiyahu HaMelech. Let me share with you another story. So there was a person living in Kiryat Sanz. He worked in the girls' school. He wasn't a chassid. And 2 of his sons-in-law came for Shabbos, and they came to visit the Klausenburg Rebbe. 2 Litvishin Galait that learned in Brisk, and the Rebbe talked with them and learning, and he was very inspired. He was very inspired, and he asked them, what's their parnasa? And they said, well, we get from the koilel, and everybody knows in Brisk we don't give much money. And the Rebbe was inspired. And then by Chumash Rashi was the Rebbe's platform where he spoke about the Yonah the Yoim and Divrei Musa. And I'll never forget that Shmus Chumash Rashi. The Rebbe said, 2 young Galait came to visit me. Brisk young Galait. Talmidei Chachomim Meflogim. And there Mekayim Divrei Chazal, Pas b'melech toichal, Mayim b'mesura tishta. I don't need your Streimlach, he said. I don't need your Streimlach. You could throw away your Streimlach. What I need is Mesiras Nefesh for Torah. Believe me, he needed the Streimlach very much. He was makbed and minig avos kekutzoi shel Yud. And a Chassidus Shalavish meant a great deal to him. But Torah meant 1,000 times more. And he gives Torah meant 1,000,000 times more than a Shtaim. Doesn't Shiurim. And I say, and his tefillah was unique. Our generation saw nothing like it. He davened like the Divrei, like Rebbe Kiva. Brochas Lamed Aleph, the Gemara says about Rebbe Kiva, Manicha Yodem Bezavezu, V'matzah Bezaves Acheres. His tefillahs were unlike any other. He davened for hours every day. Every Shmoyne Esrei was b'demois sholish. In middle of Shmoyne Esrei, he spoke to HaKadosh Baruch Hu in Yiddish. Tate kroin, he used to say 10 times. Keben ha-meschata b'fnei Yavev. Mamish keben ha-meschata b'fnei Yavev. You could never figure out how long that tefillah will take. Alavai, I should daven once in my lifetime, but later called Divrei, the way he davened every Vochadik Mincha, every Marav, always with priyas. There's a story told that when he was a younger Rav in Klausenburg in Hungary, and in Hungary, it was the custom whenever a Rav visited town, first he came to visit the local Rav, the Moradasa. So it is told that the Minchas Alazah, the Munkach Rav, once came to visit Klausenburg, and he sent his Gabbai to check with the Klausenburg Rav whether he could come visit, and the Gabbai comes back and he says he's in the middle of Shachas. So the Munkach Rav tells him, go check where he is in middle of Shachas, you tell me. So he went back and he comes back to the Munkach Rav and he says, he's by Vayavorach David. And the Minchas Alazah asks him, go check. Is it Vayavorach or David? That's a joke, but yes, Vayavorach is not the same as David. That's the way he davened. Sometimes the Shachas could take 2 hours, 2.5 hours. And you could never guess where he's going to cry and where he's going to stop. His tefillahs were Keben ha-meschata b'fnei Yavev. And when I come to think of it, this Goen v'kodosh, Tzadik Yesod Olam, whose entire life was Torah and Avodah. And he built a hospital. And he established Kiryot. He built the Yishuv in Netanya and a Vishuv in Yerushalayim. And these endeavors are time consuming. Today we have Mayne HaYeshua and B'nai Barak, but at the time it was unknown. Nobody understood. A Rebbe building a hospital, a Hasidic Rebbe, it's not a shtibel, because his devotion to Klal Yisrael was unlimited. His entire life was Mesiras Nefesh. For him, to close the Gemara was really Mesiras Nefesh. Shashua Shel Torah was what kept him going. That was his koyach, that was his sustenance, that was his life. Torah and avodah, Torah and tefillah. But if Klal Yisrael needs a hospital, he will build a hospital. His devotion to Tzarchei HaKlal knew no limit. Medrash Tanchuma, Rav Asi Lifnei Moshe was bitterly crying, and his Talmidim asked him, why are you crying? You weren't even Isaac B'tzarchet Siver. You were such a great master. And Rav Asi says, that is why I'm crying. because I wasn't oisik b'tzarchei tzibur. I wasn't nice about all them chaveirai. So the Klausenburg Rebbe needed not to cry. He was not only a giant in Torah, a giant in Avodah. He was nice about all the chaveirai v'oisik b'tzarchei tzibur. And that is part of his unbelievable greatness. He should be a Melech Yosher for Klal Yisrael, and we should all try to emulate his ways. We should try to follow in his footsteps in Torah, in Avodah, in Tzarchei Tzibur. He should be a Melech Yosher for Klal Yisrael. We should only know B'Soros Tovis Yeshua's V'Nachomes. We should be Zocher B'Korav T'Tchias HaMesim and be as Goel Tzedek and Binyan Beis HaMikdash B'Peiro B'Yomeinu.